This is called ancient Greece. We're continuing. So we left off here. Greek houses. Whether in the country or the city, Greek houses were not luxurious. They were not luxurious. They did not have the conveniences that we would consider essential today, such as running water, plumbing, and kitchen fixtures, cooking and washing. Water in a Greek home was drawn from a well. Since the well could be as much as 40 feet deep, hauling water was quite a chore for the slaves. Sometimes they fetched it from the public fountains instead. Some rooms inside the house may have been set aside for a particular purpose, like cooking or washing, but they did not usually have built-in fixtures. Cooking was done over a portable grill, which was also the only source of heat. In the bathroom, a large pot was used as a toilet, which the slaves would empty into the gutter outside. Only a few rich people had their own drains leading out into the street. Multi-purpose furniture. Greeks liked to sit or recline on low couches and benches, and eat their food from low tables. They kept their clothing in chests, not wardrobes, since their chitons and other simple garments could be carefully folded up and stored flat without getting creased. All the other furniture in a Greek house included armless chairs and couches, both with seats made of leather or fiber cords. Some pieces were used for several different purposes. A couch, for example, would serve as a seat, used to use while dining. Would serve as a seat, a comfortable place to relax, and even a bed to sleep on. The house contains few elaborate decorations. The rooms are designed simply to provide a suitable setting for the things that are to fill them, and thus each room invites just what is fitting for it. Interior decoration. The art of laying mosaics or pictures made from small pieces of stone or glass was invented by the Greeks. Elaborate mosaics were not often seen in private houses, although the andron, or men's quarters of a rich Greek household, sometimes had mosaic floors. Usually made from different colored river pebbles laid out in designs using basic shapes such as triangles, circles, and squares. Most floors in the house were made of beaten earth. The walls were probably just bare plaster. Sometimes they were hung with brightly colored, patterned tapestries woven by the women of the house. The most splendid of these would be found in the andron, almost always the most elaborately decorated and painted room in a Greek house. One rich Athenian, a man called Alcibiades, had his dining room wall specially painted by a theatrical designer, showing various scenes in perspective as might be seen on a theater backdrop. Less wealthy people often hung pots, pans, and other useful items on their walls. This ingeniously solved the problem of storage as well as decoration. A Greek home contains one storeroom, one kitchen, then a men's area, which is an andron, then a women's area, gynaikon, a workshop, a women weaving area, and a bathroom and a bedroom. So 8 sections. Separate areas for men and women. Greek houses were made of mud, brick, often just one story high. Alcibiades, Alcibiades, is the person who had mosaic or theatrical painting on his walls. So separate areas for men and women. Greek houses were made of mud, brick, often just one story high. The rooms were grouped around a courtyard. There were a well or cistern provided for water. There was sometimes an altar to Hestia, the goddess of the hearth. The hearth is like the chimney. Windows without glass were few and high up to keep out dust, heat, and burglars. Good idea. And the front part of the house, the andron, or men's quarters, was a very public area. It included the guest rooms and was used for entertainment. Makes sense. The women's quarters, the gynaikon, were further back and more private. Nearby would be rooms for the children and slaves. Children and slaves. So that's inside. So one is a storage room. They have like pots, whatever, are stolen. 2 is the kitchen for cooking. And they have a table, their cooking utensils, etc. 3 is the men's area or andron. They have seats, table, couches. 4 is the women's area. There's weaving room, etc. 5 is a workshop. They have statues. They're making, working, whatever. 6. So 6 for 6. Okay, 6. So, 4 was like the sleeping areas in the back. So 4 was the weaving. And then 5. That was 6. And then 7 is the restroom, the bathe, etc. 8, the bedroom, or bedroom, right here. So the women's area is like 4, is I guess kind of where they spend time. So that's the house. Inside the house. Outside. Inside, outside, ice cream paint job. Inside, outside, ice cream paint job. Okay, so continuation. This is called the world of work. The Greeks, farmers, arts craftsmen, and state officials alike worked hard at their various occupations, always valuing a job well done and keenly appreciating quality and craftsmanship, but most people did not live to work. Other things, like being a good citizen, were often more important to them. Women at work. Women had slaves to help them with domestic chores such as cooking, leaving them free to spend their time weaving cloth. Clothes, curtains, cushion covers were all produced within the home. A whole range of equipment was needed for weaving. Wool or flax was used to make the cloth, as cotton was then very rare. First, the wool or flax was washed, combed, and dried. Most of the dyes used were made from earth and plants, although one, a brilliant purple, came from murex shellfish. Next, the wool or flax was spun into thread by hand with a distaff and spindle. So they're dyeing, they're washing and dyeing, combing, and then spinning it. Okay. And then finally the thread held down with special loom weights was woven into cloth on a vertical wooden loom. Okay, so the farming round. Okay, so she says sheep's wool was bought as a fleece. First, the burrs were removed, and then the fleece was washed and dyed. Married women wove and their daughters spun. The weather was usually good, so the work was often done in the courtyard. A terracotta model of a slave fanning a kitchen stove. Fanning made the charcoal hot enough to keep supper and the only warm meal of the day. So supper is the only warm meal of the day. Okay. So farming was vitally important to the economy of Greece. During the Peloponnesian War, the Spartan general Aristides was able to subdue Acanthus, a neutral city. Prasidas, the Spartan general. Aristides, simply by threatening to destroy its fruit crop. Many city dwellers as well as country folk worked on the land. The farming year followed a regular cycle. In springtime, the farmers and workers prepared for the May grain harvest. In autumn, they harvested grapes and olives. Summer and winter were not so busy, which gave them plenty of time for other pursuits such as war and politics. Living over the shop. Potters, sculptors, smiths, and many other kinds of craftsmen worked in the cities. Usually each craft was practiced in one particular area of the city, which makes sense. One house in Athens was occupied by marble sculptors for 200 years. The main craft practiced in Athens was pottery making, with about 100 vase painters alone working in the Kerameikos, which is the potter's corner. Kerameikos. Sounds like ceramics. And then craftsmen sold their goods direct, since there were no retailers to buy goods from suppliers. And then sell them to the customers. This is why many Greeks lived as near as possible to their own shops. So the craftsmen sold their goods directly to the customers. As a result, the only special city shopping areas were the marketplaces. Greeks went barefoot at home, but wore sandals, leather sandals, or boot outdoors. Boots. People had these made to measure at a cobbler's. Had them measured at cobbler workshops or cobbler stalls in the agora, which I assume is the market. Ancient Greek craftsmen produced goods on a relatively small scale, taking great personal pride in their work. Factories were almost unheard of, this industrialization. Although we do know of one which employed 20 slaves to produce bedsteads, and another with 30 slaves who made swords. Some larger factories were set up in times of war when the demand of weapons and armor increased, but these were still tiny by today's standards. The Greeks used many different tools, including hammers, axes, drills, and lathes, which were made from bronze and later iron. Lathes, L-A-T-H-E-S. This terracotta model shows a worker using a saw. The only example of industrialization on a scale approaching that of modern times was in the silver mines of Lavrion in Attica. The state leased out the mining rights to rich men, who then worked the mines using slave gangs. The Athenian general Nicias, Nicias, hired about 1,000 of his slaves to work in the silver mines at enormous profit to himself, rich and poor. As a result of this kind of exploitation, there were both rich, and very poor people in Greek society, but to help make the system a bit fairer, there was a clever method of taxing the rich called liturgies. Rich men had to perform special services for the state, such as paying for the chorus and plays at drama festivals. Many grumbled about these payments, but at least they knew what the money was being spent on and could find satisfaction in the quality of the service they provided. That's pretty cool. So it's kind of like state tax, liturgies. And then city-state. Ancient Greece was made up of over 100 city-states, and every Greek was a member of one of them. Their own word for city-state, or polis, has given us the modern English word for politics, meaning the art of governing a state, town, and country. A city-state included both the city and its surrounding countryside. When Greeks talked about the Athenians, therefore, they meant both the inhabitants of the city of Athens and the people who lived in Attica, the area around it. But the lifestyles of city dwellers and country folks were obviously very different, and their interests were not always the same. In this tragic comedy, the Acarnanians, the playwright Aristophanes tells us of how much the men from one small village of Attica missed their homes when they had to seek refuge in Athens during the Peloponnesian War. The playwright Aristophanes wrote the comedy Acarnanians. Pericles, leader of Athens in its golden age when the city's wealth and power was at its height, organized a building program to beautify the city. Pericles, Pericles. Pericles. Citizenship. All the adult men born in a polis qualified as citizens of that particular city-state. A state of 10,000 citizens would have a total population of around 100,000, about 40,000 women, children, foreigners, and perhaps 50,000 slaves. Most city-states were small, with less than 10,000 citizens. Athens was unusually large, with about 40,000 citizens. Sparta had only 9,000, who were heavily outnumbered by 60,000 slaves. The philosopher Aristotle said that each citizen should know all the others by sight. Only then could democracy work properly. He believed that democracy was not possible in larger states of, say, 100,000 citizens and a total population of 1 million people. So they believed in smaller. So the ceremonial center of Athens was the Acropolis High Fortress. Is the meaning of Acropolis is shown here. The largest building is the Parthenon Temple of Athena. The 30-foot high statue of Athena nearby. So Athens was the Acropolis. In Athens, excuse me, and that's the high fortress. And then there's a statue of Athena in front of the Acropolis. Greek coins were made of gold and silver. They were often stamped with various symbols of the issuing city-state on one side and the head of a popular god on the other. Those are pretty nice. The owl. Woo, woo. And the horse. And the women. They're nice coins. Gold or silver, they say. With popular gods on one side, and various symbols of the city-state on the other. Diplomacy and alliances. Today, countries negotiate with each other through their ambassadors, especially appointing officials who live in foreign cities and act on behalf of their homeland. In ancient Greece, however, things were different. Sparta, for example, was represented in Athens by an Athenian official who had agreed to act in Sparta's interest. Some cities were grouped together into special alliances. The cities of Boeotia, for example, from the Boeotian League, and the coastal cities of the Aegean form the Athenian Empire. Alliances were unusual, however, and often made only for a particular purpose, such as fighting against the Persians. Protective walls. Special defensive walls were built around some ancient Greek cities for protection against enemy attacks. The land walls of Athens, stretched from the city wall, shown here, all the way to the port of Piraeus, 3 miles away. They were built in a great hurry soon after the Persian Wars. Sparta did not have any protective walls, but it was so well defended naturally that it became known as the citadel of Greece, Sparta. The sheer size of its territory meant that it was not as vulnerable to surprise attack as some of the other city-states. Sparta was also surrounded by the Taygetus mountain range. Taygetus, a formidable barrier to any would-be invader. Time and money. Each city-state had its own traditions and customs. Even calendars differed, which could make day-to-day arrangements between city-states and the general dating of events very confusing. All city-states produced their own coins, each stamped with the symbol of that particular city. Coins were a fairly recent invention, and there was no fixed rate of exchange. People bargained with each other until they reached an agreed deal. Some coins could only be used in their home state, while others, such as the Athenian glocks, showing the head of Athena on the front and an owl on her symbol on the back, were accepted all over the Greek world. Glaucus, Glaukes, city pride. The city-states were very different from one another, and the Greek people often had fairly fixed ideas about the identity of each. Natives of one city-state were often rude about the people of another. Athenians referred to the farmers of neighboring Boeotia as Boeotian pigs. Local pride was very strong, especially among the Spartans. The brave Spartan soldiers who died after refusing to flee from the Persians at Thermopylae, even though they were heavily outnumbered, were remembered in a famous epigram. Go tell the Spartans, stranger passing by here, obedient to their laws we lie. A marble statue of a Spartan warrior. It is thought to be Leonidas, king of Sparta, from about 490 to 480 BC. and may have come from a memorial to the Spartans killed at the Battle of Thermopylae. Spartan warrior. Leonidas, king of Sparta. Okay. We're gonna pause here, and this was Ancient Greece, the book. So I thank you guys. My page is facebook.com/YOSALLPLAY. YOSALLPLAY. Thank you.